Hello and welcome everybody to this podcast about starseeds and personal power. And you may be wondering, although you probably know if you're listening, you probably know what starseeds are, but just for the sake of definition, or if you are curious, so who are starseeds and why this podcast? So the starseeds, as I believe, are those souls who have had incarnations in dimensions and locations other than the world we know. So other than the earth and this world of, three-dimensional reality. And I believe that at present there are actually quite a lot of souls who have these previous experiences of living in different dimensions, different worlds. For some people, it's different planets and very actual, very real planets. For some people, it's more of different dimensions, higher vibrational reality beyond the world that we know. And I wouldn't like to argue about the details of, how and why, because very often higher dimensional reality is very difficult to describe with the words and with the concepts that we're all using and that we have all grown up with and are operating from. No matter which language we use, it falls short because our language is made to describe our three-dimensional concepts, our reality. So sometimes it's very difficult to appropriately relate, and it will fall short. But the result is that starseeds feel and understand that this world is not all that exists. So there is a search for mission. There is also a sense that, this is not it. This society, the way it works, the way, the educational system works, the way the relationships work, is not the ultimate goal of creation, and something needs to be changed. And that's why many souls have incarnated at this time, to bring about this shift in the earth vibration, in the way life is structured. Some work with relationships, with the particular patterns of masculine and feminine relating. You may have heard about twin flames or soul connections. Some work with systems, with society at large, with changing the way the education works. So there are many avenues, but what often happens is, these souls are searching. They feel they don't belong completely, that home is elsewhere. They bring their unique flavor of spirituality. You may have heard of, the indigo children, those groups being born. The indigos, the crystal children, etc. So these would be starseeds in this definition. So why is it important, and why did I choose to put out a podcast about this? Well, because these souls often struggle with the issues of personal power. So this is what I wanted to talk about, the personal power for starseeds. It's a vast topic. It is probably worth, many more podcasts and a large course as such. But I'll just give a brief overview, and it also comes from my experience in working with those souls when I do healing work in the Akashic Records, for example. So very often these souls come in quite disempowered, also because they are attacked by dark energies because of their mission, or have been attacked. For example, you have been a healer in many past lives, and you have come to help and heal humanity, but you have been attacked by people or entities that did not want your work to be done, and as a result, you have perhaps become terrified of stepping out into the world, of showing your powers, or you do some healing work and then it takes you a very long time to recover, to come into balance, or you're attacked by things breaking, things falling apart. There is interference with electricity, with your vehicle, your whatever. So there can be numerous attacks, but for many starseeds, they have experienced serious attacks in many past lives, and so as a result can become very fearful of actually stepping out, of standing in their power. There is also, we have been born in a world that has many illusions about power and what power is and is not. And we have, of course, inherited it from our parents, our societies, from the way of life. And the way power is perceived in the modern world is not necessarily aligned with the truth, because it feeds off the masculine feminine dichotomy and kind of in order to be powerful you have to be the bad guy with big boots just stomping over everyone, and that's what it means to be powerful. Or in order to be powerful you have to be manipulative and just kind of have manipulate people and plot and sit there because you can't be forceful, but so your power would come from plotting and manipulating and just having people do your way. And power does not mean getting your way always, and power does not mean being stronger than others or compete. Power, in essence, power means just having everything you need to do to perform your mission and to perform it successfully. And those missions are different for everybody, and there is no competition. But there is, for many starseeds specifically, so for specifically those souls that have incarnated now on Earth to do some huge mission of changing and transforming the patterns and structures of the world that we live in, they are the ones that are also struggling the most, because they have been attacked, because they cannot find, because they have to create a path of their own. They have to create something out of nothing. So they are often those that experience the greatest difficulties, paradoxically. So, if you don't really see anything wrong with the world and you're happy living the way you are, that's one thing. But if you know deep inside your soul that, I've come to change something, I've come to transform something, but I have no clue how to get about it, this is where those problems arise. And from my experience, it's exactly the souls that are starseed souls, the souls that have had incarnations in different places, who have incarnated here for a mission, that struggle with this mission specifically. So it's a paradox, but it's also, for the reasons that I've explained, being attacked by dark energies and having problems with existing structures, and not knowing how to align our mission with what is actually going on with the world. And also, of course, this past life disempowerment, being attacked too much. A lot of disempowerment comes from the imbalance of the masculine and feminine within us. This is a huge topic. It's really as big as the world, and in a sense we're healing the masculine and feminine rift for the whole world, for the whole universe at this moment. But true power comes from healing the wounds of the masculine, of the rift between masculine and feminine. Many of us have grown up with, for example, abusive fathers and, passive, disempowered mothers. Many of us have seen that for a woman to survive, she needs to be like a man. For a woman to become successful in life, she needs to push and manipulate and be stronger than any man she has met. That's the only way she'll make it. And many women, many of us, and I could certainly say that for myself, many of us have embraced power in this way. That, I'll be the best professor in this university, I'll be the best teacher in the school, and I'll be better than any man at this. And, I'll do the job that 100 guys won't be able to do. And there is this embracing the yang, the sort of the pushy. This, again, this subject is kind of greater, vaster than the world. But let me explain my point first, and then I'll explain about other details of masculine and feminine relating when it connects to power. So many women go into this pushy yang type energy in order to survive, whereas many men, and again I talk about starseeds, about these souls that came with a mission, that came with a deep inner knowing that I'm here for a reason, I've come here to change and transform something, and my spirituality doesn't fit into the existing patterns of spirituality. So all of these crystal and indigo, and they have had other names, but this all falls under the same category. Many men would run away from power because, again, they have witnessed in their own families that, the masculine power was abusive and dominating, and I don't want any of that in my life. Or they have witnessed it in school, maybe in society, in the army, etc. So I don't want any of this in my life, but that is the only power I know. So they become very collapsed and disempowered. This archetypal new age man with a man bun and living in his mother's basement and doing odd jobs and playing computer games in his free time because he doesn't really have anything useful to do. And I don't mean this as a judgment, it probably comes out this way, but this is the result of seeing the world, and not really knowing what to do with it. It's just knowing, well, I don't want any of this. I don't want to be like those other guys. Maybe guys working at the stock exchange, or I don't know, running their own successful businesses, etc. But I don't want any of this. This is not what I came from. This is not what I came for. And this is not where I come from. When it comes to that, this is not my destiny. But what is my destiny? That's where it becomes difficult, right? So, and so what happens sometimes is that the women with these soul groups, with these higher dimensional origins, they're very powerful and forceful, and they go for it, and they're very, very in the masculine power, whereas men are very passive and lost and are kind of not really sure what they're doing here, so the women have to drag them along. That's what happens. Neither of these is balanced. And we are collectively, as the spiritual community, we're actually learning how to balance it. It's very important. And I can say for my part that I also have, very basic understanding of how it actually should be. I'm still in the process of integrating this masculine, feminine dance within myself, because I too, very early on in life, in my teens, I have had to struggle for survival and fight for survival, literally. And the only way I knew how to do it was to be like men, was to fight and push and compete. And the feminine values have been neglected. Now, when I talk about masculine and feminine, so one of the, obviously, when I speak about those problems, so one of the first steps towards healing is to start integrating masculine and feminine, the masculine and feminine within ourselves. This is the first step towards empowerment, but it is easier said than done, because our illusions and our concepts of what it means to be masculine, what masculine and feminine actually is, are also distorted from the society around us. So I was just speaking about yin and yang energies, going into yang as pushing and yin as receiving and allowing more. That's the dance. But it doesn't mean that, the masculine is pushy and the feminine is receiving. These are our concepts from the society, and many of us carry them as well. And I like to counterbalance that with the Indian divinities, and with Kali specifically. And many people say that Kali is so ancient that she comes from the time before religion, before the division into masculine, feminine, before this rift. So she's whole, she's full, she's complete. And Kali, if you know, and I had some podcasts about her prior to this one, Kali is the divinity that is both terrifying and motherly. In fact, she reminds me of those biblical writings of, the prophet witnessing the Lord, the great and terrible day of the Lord. Or there are books in the Bible, and there is specifically the Apocrypha. There is a book of Enoch where, Enoch, who is taken up to heaven, and he witnesses the face of the Lord, and he said, oh, it was terrible, and at the same time it was awesome. So Kali reminds me of that description, and putting it into terrible. She's the destructive, murderous force with severed heads and blood dripping, and she's the mother of the universe, the womb of the creation. But Kali is definitely not passive, not soft and meek, not receptive. She's complete, she's full. That's why I said, her archetype comes from the time before the separation. She is, by some, including myself, believed to be, the most ancient goddess, the creatrix of the universe, and that was before separation into yin and yang. So she's complete in it. She both gives gifts and cuts away everything that stands between you and your happiness. So she's both beautiful and terrifying. There is no duality in her. But we can think about other feminine archetypes that were not passive, that were not silent, that were not receptive. So bringing the balance of masculine and feminine within us also means reconciling those concepts, those archetypes, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man. Does being a woman mean being passive, being silent, being obedient? Does being a man mean being pushy, being aggressive, competitive, powerful? What does it mean to be powerful? We have to grapple with those questions. Whereas yin and yang can be put into, yes, receptivity is yin, and, giving, bestowing is yang. Male and female should incorporate all of this. We are integral beings. We should grapple with those questions as we heal those polarities, as we detach more and more from the collective. But that is definitely the greatest obstacle and the first stepping stone towards, coming more fully into our power, and I talk about starseeds specifically, is healing that rift between masculine and feminine, bringing those polarities together and being very honest with ourselves. Where did I run away from power? Am I running away from my femininity? Do I think it's safe to be a woman? Do I actually think it's safe? Or have I become a woman that shuns her femininity, that doesn't really want to be a woman? Or am I using maybe my femininity to manipulate or entice men? Do I think this is how a woman should be? And how do I see beauty? Am I trying to be beautiful? Have I perhaps given up? Have I just said, no, I don't want to be beautiful. I don't care about that. And maybe this is good. Or maybe I don't really want that. I don't want to be like those women who manipulate men, because I want to be honest. And to me, that means, because of what I saw in life, to me, that means really, dressing like a bum and eating pizza and drinking beer all the time, because that's how I want to live. And maybe that is not really how I want to live, but that's the only way I know of not being like those other people, like those other women I've seen, because I sure as heck don't want to be like them. So we need to be very honest with ourselves and see and work with those concepts of masculine and feminine, what it means to be a woman and to be a man, what it means to be powerful. That is really best done through meditation and introspection, and if you need outside healing, of course, but there is a lot of inner work that you can do by honestly facing this and really sitting with those emotions and grappling with those questions. Because this is where we heal, this is where we go forward, this is how we fill with more power. So, of course, we need to heal the masculine and feminine within, also on the energetic level. So I was talking about the conceptual level, but even think, for example, of your energy centers, of your chakras. And think that each chakra has a masculine and feminine side. Have you tried working with the energies of your chakras in this way? Have you tried to heal and balance the masculine and the feminine side of each chakra? And if you're experienced with energy work and with tuning into your body, perhaps you can devote some time and tune in and feel into how does the masculine side of, let's say, my root chakra feel? What comes up for me? And what comes up for me for the feminine side? And these can be, the root chakra is perhaps the worst one in these terms, because a lot of conflicting emotions and memories can come up. So you may find yourself suddenly overwhelmed or saying, well, this is lots of work to do, but just allowing and embracing those emotions. But we can also ask the Spirit to heal for us always. Healing those rifts between the masculine and feminine on the level, on the ancestral level, because we have learned those dysfunctional patterns from our parents or from the immediate surroundings. Maybe our parents were fine, but everyone else was arguing, or our classmates have been horrible. So the inner child healing comes into mind. And of course, the aggressive males, we have to realize that conceptually, that the aggressive males are not the representation of true power. Maybe if you grew up in a war zone, you, as a sensitive soul, as a starseed, you would also have this realization that I don't want to be like any of those guys. So even if you have had to survive and push your way through, but there will be this shunning away from power that ultimately deep inside you don't know what power is. I don't know how to be powerful. And guess why? Because I don't want to be like any of those men. And of course you don't, because you have come to heal here. You have not come to be like any of those men. So imagine what this creates in our lives when ultimately we don't want to be powerful. So of course we're not. So that's why, so many starseeds are actually sitting in their mother's basements and, or, doing some ridiculous jobs and not really knowing what to do with themselves, because we have, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect with that. I'm uncovering layers and layers of where I resist my power. And it also feels overwhelming to me sometimes, but just putting it out and, working through these things and discussing them openly can help. And I think, realizing, just admitting that, okay, no, these guys were not the representation of true power. The pushy, the competitive, the nasty, the ugly, the whatever, the military force, that was not the representation of true power. And there is a balance that comes with it necessarily. Being a bum or drifter is also not a representation of true power. But sometimes we may need to go a little bit back and forth to see what power means. And for women, in the same way, sometimes, you may feel like you're becoming a horrible bitch, a monster, yelling at everybody because you are suddenly learning the other side of power, what it means like to be pushy and aggressive and competitive. Oh, wow, that feels good. And that's also not true power. But finding that center, finding what power actually means. And in my experience, actually finding the balance, actually healing, has a lot to do with our connection to source. And for starseeds, again, I'm talking about starseed souls specifically. Here for starseeds, it means connecting to source, connecting to those, and from again, connecting to source can sound very general. So I would say connecting to archetypal energies, to high beings, to goddesses or personifications of the divine that were really powerful, whether it's Jesus or Durga or Kali or ascended masters. We each have our own flavor, and maybe for some it sounds completely off, whereas others will find something in it. I started off this journey of connecting to the divine feminine, to the goddess, through pilgrimage to the Black Madonnas, for example. And for me it was very eye-opening that there was this representation of Our Lady of Radiant Darkness, that she was all-encompassing, that the Black Madonna was as wide and as high as the world, that she went to the highest heavens and to the deepest hell, and she was everywhere. And to me that was the beginning of connection to the goddess, and also the beginning of my devotion to Kali, which I saw as very representative of it. We each have our own path and our favorite high beings. For some it may be connecting with Arcturians or with ascended masters, etc., etc. That we bring our own flavors into that. But healing, for me, it means a lot, connecting to that particular flavor of spirit, so as to bring that energy in somewhat, to make it more personified, to make it more real. That worked for me personally. And The other side of healing and stepping into power for starseeds is expanding our energy field. Again, this is a work in progress. If we have been very disempowered from past lives, killed in many of our past lives, abused, or taken on very difficult incarnations in this lifetime, such as abusive families, for example, growing up in difficult circumstances, sexual abuse, wars, our energy fields will suffer too as a result. We may be, shrunk with holes in our aura, with attachments, etc. And that will, of course, affect our level of power. The way our energy responds, we will get easily overwhelmed. So building up the energy field is very important. And this, I think, is best done with mind-body practices such as yoga, like Kriya Yoga, or Kundalini Yoga, breathing, asanas, or other physical exercises meant to bring the energy, to get the energy moving in the chakras, to bring the energy up from the lower chakras. And ideally it would be a combination of breath and movement. So Kriya Yoga in particular comes to mind, and for some Kundalini Yoga as well, depending again on the flavor that you like. But a regular spiritual physical practice is very important to build up that energy field, because otherwise, when we start receiving more power, our bodies go on strike and can't contain the energy. So, it's like you're trying to fill up the gas tank, but the gas tank is so old, it just starts leaking all over the place and nothing good happens. So building up power necessarily means including the physical dimension, the third dimension, right? The diet and exercise and all of that. And of course, if you're overwhelmed and broken and have gone through life crisis and ego death, this will result in physical ailments as well, and sometimes you just can't deal with it anymore. I know that in my personal spiritual journey, I was very healthy and I was doing yoga and regular exercise and praying and meditating every day. But after the process of purification that I've been going through for many years, it just didn't seem to matter anymore. I couldn't exercise, for goodness sake. I was barely functioning, getting out of bed and doing the daily chores. What exercise? What healthy eating? I stopped caring. And when we go through these processes of purification, of course, it's important to give ourselves time to heal and balance, but then gradually start building up the energy system, start working more in order to be able to contain more energies, in order to actually be able to handle those challenges that come through. And the physical practice may need to change. You may need to start doing other exercises, doing more targeted, more effective breathing practices, for example, more targeted yoga practice. So change the style. You may just need more expansion, and the old stuff is not working anymore, and that's perfectly fine. But so this is part of that healing. And the third issue, so masculine and feminine, building up the energy system. And the third issue is protection. That is crucial for starseeds, because in the beginning I spoke about being attacked by dark energies, and because of the mission and because of having been healers for many lifetimes. Protection partly comes from connecting to light. From the more light you bring in, obviously the more protected you are. So all of these practices work as protection as well, but then more targeted protection, that is bringing in Christ consciousness, visualizing being surrounded by light, consciously asking for light to come in to protect your energy field, consciously cleansing the energy field, learning those techniques for energetic protection that actually work and that actually help. That is crucial because, at least up to a certain point, starseeds and especially certain soul groups will be attacked on a regular basis, and without adequate energetic protection, it will be like filling up an empty a bucket with holes in it, right? So you'll just be filling up, and it will all keep flowing away because there is no protection, because your field is constantly attacked, so you never have enough energy to actually do anything. Some soul groups have more issues with that than others, just because of the quality of light that they bring, paradoxically. Mine is one of those, for example. So I have often struggled with not having enough energy and having to rest more than everyone else, just because I constantly felt drained. So, I have probably needed to meditate and pray and spend time with the divine more than anyone else. And one thing was that I enjoyed it, of course, but then the other thing is that it is the highest level of protection available. But the more light we grow, the more protection, the more we connect to the light, the more protection is also available to us. So, yes, this is what I wanted to say for today in terms of starseeds and personal power. And I hope to be putting out a more targeted course on this, perhaps with more healing tools. But this is just an exploration of the topic, which I find to be extremely important for many people these days. So thank you very much for listening, and I wish you all the best and many blessings.